Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Rachel and I am knitting, not right now, but most of the time. And I have been knitting. This video is another installment of my Finished Object Diary series, or FO Diaries. Basically, this is a video series where once I finish a knitting project, or a crochet project, or a sewing project, or a cross-stitch project, none of which have happened aside from knitting. But basically, when I finish a project, I make a video about it and I tell you about my experience. I tell you about the pattern, what I liked, what I didn't like, roadblocks that I hit along the way, obstacles that I surmounted, etc., etc. So without further ado, let me tell you about this little ditty. This is the Riptide135 by Jennifer Shiels Toland. Now this I haven't seen other people make, which is not to say I discovered it or anything. People have made this pattern before I was aware of it, okay? All right. But I haven't seen people really talk about it or post about it. So at least in my circles, it's not really a popular pattern yet. So I would love to share it with you because it was really fun, enjoyable knit. And if you ask me, the finished product is quite elegant and beautiful. And it doesn't take a lot of expertise to knit this pattern. So without further ado, let me share about it with you, tell you about it, share it, whatever. Let's talk about it. So this, as I mentioned, is the Riptide135. I think technically it's the, let's see, Riptide 1. So it's not really the Riptide135. The Riptide pattern comes with customizable options. Basically, you can do what I did and just have it be a long, skinny scarf, or you can extend it and make it to be a shawl. So there are different options. In fact, on the pattern title page and the pattern photos on Ravelry, you can see that it's customizable in the length and the width that you make this pattern. So this is a great one skein project. Let me put it back on for you so you can really get the visuals of this fun little pattern while I talk to you about it. So I'm sure there's a lot of ways to tie this around your neck. I'm not really an expert scarf wearer, scarf tyer, so this is just my attempt to do what I've seen other people do. So, but yes, I made the option 1, the Riptide 1, which is essentially the option that is the long skinny version and you only need one skein. This is a DK weight pattern. It's a paid pattern for $6.50 on Ravelry. So take that or leave it if you think that is reasonably priced. If not, that's what it's priced at, $6.50. But yeah, let's focus. DK weight pattern, as I said, I used one skein of fingering weight held double. That gives me an approximate DK weight gauge. I cast this on, I believe, either Sunday, October 8th or Monday, October 9th. This was one of 2 projects that I brought to work on the Irish knitting tour, and I figured that I would have this done in no time. It's one skein of yarn, fingering weight held double. It should be a breeze, right? But I quickly found that it took more focus than I was able to give it during many parts of the Irish knitting tour. I was talking with my friends. I was seeing sites. I was gathering all this information and absorbing all this fun stuff. So I didn't have the mental capacity to follow a lace pattern for much of the tour. So I didn't end up working on it too terribly much on the Irish knitting tour, but I did start and technically finish it on the tour because I cast on at the Grand Canal the Grand Canal Hotel in Dublin, and I cast off on the plane ride home. So I guess technically it still was a quick knit, but yeah, let's talk about the pattern. So as I've mentioned, this is a completely customizable pattern. You can make the Riptide 1, which is what I've done, that takes one skein of DK weight yarn or fingering held double, and it will make a long scarf like I'm wearing here. Or you could make the Riptide 3, which takes 3 skeins of DK weight yarn and makes a medium-sized shawl. Or you can make the Riptide 5, which takes 5 skeins of yarn and makes a large shawl. And in my mind, as I'm looking at this Ravelry page, I was thinking, why did they skip the Riptide 2 and the Riptide 4? Why did they name them odd numbers? And then it clicked in my brain as I was telling you, it corresponds to the amount of skeins that you need. So for the Riptide 1, you need 1 skein, the Riptide 3, 3 skeins, the Riptide 5, 5 skeins. Okay, so now it makes sense. That's an easy way to remember it. That was kind of smart naming strategy. For the yarn I used a skein of Beachy Breeze Fibers. If you are not aware of Beachy Breeze Fibers, Sam is the proprietor, the dyer of this small business, and she makes amazing, amazing, beautiful yarn. This is not sponsored. I do not have any affiliate partnership with Sam, although I would love to if that were to happen one day. But amazing yarn. So this is Sam's yarn. This is in the colorway Swamp Thing, which is just a one-off skein I bought, I think, years ago, probably in 2020 or 2021, somewhere around there. So I've had it for a while, just a single skein of fingering weight yarn, 4-ply, 463 yards per skein, 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. Best base of all time. But I've had this skein of Swamp Thing, and I have never really known what to make with it. So the perfect pattern came about in the Riptide 1. I initially found this pattern during a search on Ravelry because I was looking for scarf patterns for my grandma. So my grandma had requested some yarn, or not yarn, a scarf made in Cabin Collection yarn. So I was looking at Ravelry and I was sending her pictures of examples of different styles of scarves for her to pick from. And in that search is when I stumbled upon the Riptide series. Riptide135. So even though this is obviously not cabin yarn, I was very excited to make one for myself because I think it's really cute. Honestly, I have a good amount of Swamp Thing left, and I kind of regret not making it longer. But the way that this pattern is constructed is you cast on down here with just a few stitches. And then you do your increases while you are working this lace pattern. I did wet block this, but I kind of think I need to do it again and aggressively stretch it out a little bit more so the lace pattern can really be showcased. But you cast on with these teeny little stitches down here. You work your increases along with this lace pattern. So it's basically columns of lace. Let me stretch it out so you can see. Columns of lace in between columns of stockinette with an I-cord edge on both sides. Once you've gotten your increases done, you are now just working that same pattern all the way through the length of the scarf. And then when you determine you only have a certain amount of yarn left, let's see. It says to start your decreases when you have 8 to 10 grams of yarn left. And I didn't have a scale with me. Fun fact, during the Lisa Sisk Mobius knitting workshop, she pulled out this tiny little scale and was like, yeah, this is a great scale to have in your project bag. And everybody was laughing. And I was like, what's so funny? Like, this does sound, why are you making fun of Lisa? This does sound like a really good idea. Turns out the scale is not made for weighing yarn. That's not its intended purpose. Okay, so you can do some critical thinking and some research to figure out what its intended purpose actually is. But anyway, I'm going to get one of those scales and I'm going to use it for yarn. So don't arrest me, but yeah. I got scared that I was going to be arrested just now. Okay, I'm going to use it for yarn. All right. So anyway, yeah, so I didn't, basically the point of this story is I didn't have a scale with me, okay? Small or otherwise. So I kind of had to guesstimate, and I didn't want to lose yarn chicken. So I kind of erred on the side of caution a little too much. So I do wish this was just a teeny bit longer. And honestly, if I really cared that much, I could frog it and re-knit it. But I don't think it's too short. I would just prefer a little bit longer. But maybe when I block it again, I can kind of stretch it out. I don't know. It's kind of growing on me just how it looks here. If you think it looks nice, then maybe tell me in the comments so I feel a little less self-conscious about it. But if you think it is too short, you can tell me that too. I can take it. But anyway, I didn't have a scale with me, so I erred on the side of caution. But in the pattern, it does recommend that you start your decreases when you have 8 to 10 grams left, and then basically you work down to cast off to make a mirror image of what you started with. So both the ending and the beginning have points on them. They are tapered, and it's just a nice pattern. I think with an aggressive block, that will really help the lace bloom. Now, as I mentioned, for the most part on the knitting tour, I couldn't really knit on this because it was just too much. There was too much going on. The increases took a lot of focus. I was following line by line instructions for each row, and it was just too difficult to go back and forth between my pattern and the conversations I was having and the knitting I was doing, and it was just too much. So I ended up opting for working on another project for the majority of our, hustle and bustle throughout Ireland. But when I finished that project, I did pick this up, and one day suddenly it clicked. Like, that magic moment when your lace pattern, you memorize it, that happened then. And if you don't know what that magic moment feels like, keep at it. You will feel that one day. If you are determined to knit lace and you haven't, had that epiphany yet, that's something for you to look forward to. But I experienced that epiphany where, after you do the increases, it's really a 4-row repeat. So it's easy if you have the wherewithal to read your stitches and see what's going on in the fabric you're making, then you can kind of put the pattern aside and go based on your stitches and not need to read the pattern. So finally, I reached that point and I was able to knit this more on the trip because I didn't have to go look at my notes on my iPad where I read my patterns or my phone where I read my patterns. I could just look at my fabric and know what row I needed to do next. Now, there is a mistake on here. There's probably more than one, if we're being honest, but there is at least one that I know of. Let's see if I can try to find it. I opted not to go back and redo it, frog back and fix this mistake because 1, it is not that serious, and 2, it's kind of a nice relic of the trip. I don't know, mistakes sometimes can be souvenirs. Wow, I should make merch with that. Mistakes can be souvenirs. I have to think that through. And then 3, I asked DJ if he could find the mistake, and he could not. So then I knew, you know what, this is not glaring. And in fact, I'm having trouble finding it right now. But basically, I mixed up one of the lace repeats in one of the lace columns. Not even the entire row, just one of the lace columns. So you win some, you lose some. You can't expect perfection, and that's okay. So maybe that's a good lesson for me to remember. Where in the world is it? Did I make up this mistake? No, I couldn't have. It's somewhere in here. But maybe that just goes to show that it really wasn't that big a deal after all, because I cannot find it. Whatever. I'll show you a close-up of this lace. Basically, if you can see, this yarn is variegated, of course, so that makes it a little bit maybe more difficult to see the stitch structure. But basically, the lace sections kind of zigzag. So the eyelets on either side of the lace column, I'm trying not to accidentally flip anyone off. the eyelet sections on either side of the lace column, you see it kind of goes back and forth. So it makes it so the lace looks kind of like a zigzag or almost like a cable. So it's just really pretty. It's elegant. It doesn't take too much brain power once you get that 4-row repeat down in your brain. See, if it were a little longer, I could wrap it this way, but it's just a little too suffocating if I try to do that. In fact, let's see. It's kind of cute. Let's see how much yarn I actually have left. I have 9 grams left. So I really could have gone a little bit further with this Riptide, but I like it. I will definitely make this pattern again. I would recommend it. This pattern was easy to follow, easy to read, and it was enjoyable. Again, with the caveat that the increased sections, the decreased sections, and getting that 4-row repeat does take a little bit of mental toughness. But once you get through that, if you can dedicate some focused time to do those things, you can get through this no problem. Things that you need to know to make this pattern are increasing, decreasing, yarn overs, knitting 2 together, slip, slip, knit, knit, and purl. And you're golden. So I will say that since I didn't make the Riptide 3 or the Riptide 5, I can't technically speak to those 2 patterns or those 2 variations of this pattern, but the Riptide 1, here's another way to style it. The Riptide 1 is pretty great, I think. Really great use for those single skeins that are languishing in your stash, and you know you want to use something, or you know you want to use them for something special, but you're just not sure. Consider this pattern. Let me show you another way I know how to style. You put one tail in, and then you twist it and put the other tail in, and then it makes this like cute little knot. I used to do this when I was a teacher. I'm a teacher now, but when I was like a high school teacher. Anyway, that's the Riptide 1. I found this to be a very enjoyable knit, and like I may have already said, I will be making this again. I will be making one for my grandma, and I think I'll be making at least another one for me, because this is green and I need one in purple. Okay, this might be the last green thing I ever made. I don't know. No, because the simple thing, the faded simple thing that I also started and finished in October was also green, and I finished that after this one. Basically, on the plane ride, I cast this off, and then I cast on the green simple thing that I made in October. But that's it. That's my review of the Riptide pattern. I recommend it. It is like $6.50 for a little neck pattern. Might seem steep. I don't know. I think it's fair. But especially fair when you consider that it's a pattern for a scarf, a medium-sized shawl, and a large shawl all in one. So consider this if you have a single skein that you know that you want to work up into something beautiful, or 3 skeins or 5 skeins, depending on which variation of this pattern you're thinking. If you knit this pattern, let me know. I'd love to see what you're making. You can tag me on Instagram or let me know here in the comments. And yeah, can't wait to see what you make. So that's all I have for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell if you'd like to be notified of my next upload. And then last but not least, head over to Instagram and follow me at Rachel's Knitting if you don't already. Okay, see you next time.